Hi everyone, I'm Charan Acharya. I'm working as software architect for Watsonx Code Assistant in IBM. I have 15 plus years of experience in software development, and I'm associated with IBM for more than a decade now. I'm also a master inventor in IBM, where I filed multiple patents. All right, and I'm very actively involved in submitting inventions and getting patents for IBM. All right, so today in this presentation, I'll be explaining how IBM Watsonx Code Assistant can be used to boost developers' productivity, right, on day-to-day basis, right? So when developer develops code, we can see how developer can use Watsonx Code Assistant to make developers' life easy. So before getting into the details of Watsonx Code Assistant, let's look at some of these problems that are faced by software enterprises today. All right. Uh, So there are lots of applications that are developed many years back, right? Using all these different old or legacy technologies, they are still working. They are still in place. Enterprises are using them, right? But for some reason we are not able to upgrade that application to latest tech stack because of the old framework or the way old languages that are used for developing that languages. But that being said, it's very important to upgrade it to a new tech stack, right? Because there are lots of new solutions, there are lots of new framework languages, right? So it is good to upgrade it. So 83% of business executives, they agree that all this legacy application needs to be upgraded. But in reality, only 27% right of these enterprises, they have managed to do this upgradation. But rest of them, they're still trying to find a way to upgrade this, right? So it's not very easy because it's a huge application. It's not going to be easy to do this upgrade, right? Because there's a huge risk associated with this, right? So you do this upgrade and you end up breaking something which no one wants to do it. And also there's this lots of revenue associated with this such application, legacy application, right? So it may incur revenue loss as well. While executives, they are thinking about how they can modernize these apps, in parallel Gen AI is also getting lots of traction, right? So you see Gen AI related solution everywhere now. It is expected by 2028 we'll have an explosion of these new apps, right? We may see, like, 1 billion new apps that are built using Gen AI, right? So I mean, that is one part of it. You build the apps using Gen AI, then what happens next? You have more code to manage, right? So you build more app, you have more code to manage, right? So again, that's another different problem to be solved, right? So you'll have more code, more app, there's more maintenance that has to be done, right? So it's ever going technical death, right? It's a never ending story, right? You solve a problem by generating code, then again, you need to maintain that code, right? So it's a continuous cycle. Uh, now, now that's one problem. There's this another problem of skills shortage, right? So, for all these legacy applications, these are built using old tech stack, old languages, right? Now, finding people who has this expertise now, it's not going to be easy, right? So, these are all very big applications generating lots of revenue, but then we need people to maintain and fix issues in that application, right? But finding people with the expertise is very difficult, right? Not just that, so even with this latest technologies, there are so many languages using which we can develop application, right? It's not that we get people readily available who can look at the application and develop code immediately from day one, right? Uh, so the skill shortage is another problem faced by enterprises, right? So 90% of the enterprise will feel this skill will experience this skill shortage issues, uh, whereas 50% of the enterprise, they're already facing it, right? So what they are doing is that they hire people who do not have the expertise, then they spend on training them, ramping them up, right? So it's a time consuming process, involves cost as well, right? So that's another problem. So with this, what happens, there's another impact, right? So as an enterprise, we would have defined this release date. All right, we would have announced that we are going to release our application in so and so date, but then again we hire people, there's a we train them, that will take time, right? And also as humans, we make errors, right? There might be error, and we may not be able to meet this deadline or the release date that's given. Now when that happens, there's another problem, right? Or we may another problem, that is, the customer satisfaction will be reduced, customer will not be satisfied, right? We would have announced some date and we are not delivering, we are not meeting that expectation, so there's a reduced customer satisfaction. There's also a revenue loss, right? So the more we delay, more revenue loss is tend to occur, right? So it is expected, because of all this, because of not meeting deadline issue, there's a revenue loss of expected revenue loss of about 6.5 trillion US dollars, right? So there are like various problems that are faced by enterprises today. Now employee productivity is expected to be the primary driver for this AI economic value, right? So there's a widespread interest uh, shown towards this Gen AI solution. So executives really want to integrate this Gen AI in their solutions. It is expected that 63% of IT processes will be automated using this Gen AI solution. Then it is not just this Gen AI solution. It is not just limited to IT process, right? There's so much more that we can do. This customer service can be automated, supply chain process can be automated, it can be integrated in HR and talent management, sales, operations, and finance, right? So like this is just a rough estimate, how much automation that we can do in these various fields using Gen AI as solution, right? Now, with all this problem, this is where exactly this Watsonx Code Assistant that comes into picture, right? So IBM Watsonx Code Assistant solves many of these problems with its Gen AI based solution, right? So the IBM Watsonx Code Assistant, it delivers enterprise ready code, right, which is generated using AI solution to address the skill gap that we spoke about, right, and to increase the developer productivity, right, and also to accelerate the software development lifecycle process. So we don't really have to wait for an expert to join an enterprise, or we don't really have to wait until someone ramps up and is ready to code, right? We have this solution in place. We do have access code assistant in place, and we can start using it from day one. All right. There are different offerings or different flavors of Watsonx Code Assistant. There's this IBM Watsonx Code Assistant for Z. Then there's IBM Watsonx Code Assistant for Red Hat, Ansible Lite, and we have a IBM Code Assistant for multiple different languages. So IBM Code Assistant for Z is one of the first is our first and oldest offering. This is for mainframe solutions, right? This is for modernizing all the old mainframe solutions which was written many years ago. Then the second offering is for Red Hat Ansible Lightspeed, right? So this can be used for automating Ansible playbooks, or not just automating, for generating Ansible playbooks for uh, managing this infrastructure as code, right? So we do have this infrastructure as code. This code can be used for automating or maintaining this infrastructures, right? And mostly Ansible is what is being used there, and Watsonx Code Assistant can be used to generate this Ansible playbooks, which can be used to automate all this process. Then we have the latest offering or solution, which was released sometime late last year. This is for generating and automating code for multiple languages. We'll go through the list of languages which is supported by this Watsonx Code Assistant in detail in later slides. Now, the backbone of this offering or this Watsonx Code Assistant is IBM's Granite LLM model, right? This is an LLM model which is developed by IBM. It's termed as IBM Granite Foundation models. These models are developed and it is made open source by IBM. It can be used by anyone, right? So you can download and you can use this model. And all these different flavors of Code Assistant, it uses this IBM Granite Foundation models. Now, talking about these models, we have different flavors. IBM has this different flavor of Granite models. There's this Granite language model, Granite vision model, speech model, time series model. There's Guardian, geospatial model, and there's also this embedding models, right? So different models are fine-tuned and built for different purposes, right? It is trained and fine-tuned for different purposes. As per our need, we can use the model what we want. So Watsonx Code Assistant, since it is focuses on coding purpose on in the software development process and lifecycle, it falls into this SDLC category. uh, Granite language model is used right by this Watsonx Code Assistant, and like I said, it is uploaded to Hugging Face. If anyone wants to use this model, just go to Hugging Face and download the model, and we can use that. That's about the model. Now let's see, let's talk more about Watsonx Code Assistant, right? So Watsonx Code Assistant, it generates enterprise uh, ready code, which uses AI-based solution for generating code. It is not just limited for generating code, right? There's so much more that we can do using this Watsonx Code Assistant. So there's this AI powered coding task. So we can do code generation. We can, ask coding as code assistant to explain the code. We can generate unit tests. We can generate documentation and so on, right? All this can be done. Then we also have this chat interface integrated to the IDE. It's a free form chat. We can type in our prompt and we can talk to our code, right? We can ask Watsonx code assistant what we want. We can ask it to write code. We can ask it to generate documentation. There's so many types of different prompts that we can feed into WC, and it will get us what we want using chat understand. So it is just, questions can be typed in plain English language, and this assistant will be able to understand it. This assistant, it is integrated to IDE directly. Currently we support VS Code and Eclipse, so we can go to VS Code or Eclipse marketplace, and we can search for this Patchworks Code Assistant, and we can integrate this plugin to the IDE. Uh, Code Assistant can also be used for modernization of Java code. So if you have an old application that is developed using Java, we can use this Watsonx Code Assistant solution, which is also known as WCA, right, to generate or upgrade the existing Java application. And as a user, as a user, if you're not sure what is the type of the font or what is the convention that we have to follow, then we do have some pre-built chat commands, right? So there's a prompt library. We can go through it. We can check, the existing prompts. Then we can, uh, generate prompts by referring them. So that is possible. Then there's this very important aspect, right? So generating code, boosting developers productivity is important, but uh, maintaining trust, transparency, privacy is also equally important, right? For the software enterprise, this is very important, right? If there's an enterprise which is using this code assistant, they should or any AI solution, right? The solution should be very transparent. Otherwise, they may not use that solution. So IBM Watson's Code Assistant is very transparent, right? So when code is generated, it will tell me if this code is used by someone else, or if this code is licensed or by someone else, right? So that I don't have to reuse that code as an enterprise. I don't want to use a code which is licensed by someone else, right? If I do that, then I'll be in trouble, right? So WCA, as a model, it can generate code that can be used by someone else, right? So model is trained using lots of existing code base, right? And there's a possibility it might generate a code which is used by someone else. Now WCA will tell me that, this code is licensed using so and so license, and it'll give me an option whether to use it or not, right? So there's this code similarity checks in WCA. So this can be configured when I'm provisioning an instance. I'll tell WCA, okay, if this code is licensed using this license, you show me the code, or you block the code, or you warn me. There are different options that I can configure. Based on that, WCA will tell me, right? And for some enterprises, they don't really want to send this code to cloud, right? Because they consider the code to be confidential and they don't want to share it, right? So in such case, they can deploy this WCA on-prem and they can use it. So we offer two different solutions. So there's a SaaS solution where user can go and provision instance from cloud and they can use it, or they can deploy it on-prem. Now here is a slide which explains how WCA can be used in different stages of in a SDLC, different stages of SDLC, right? So basically, the code lifecycle management. Let's consider there's an Java application or any other legacy application we would like to upgrade it, right? So there'll be different stages associated with that. So how do we do it? Or How do we do it using WCA? So first step would be to understand that application, right? So we cannot just go ahead and upgrade that application. We will have to understand the application. We need to know what it is doing. We need to understand the entire workflow, runtime, and only then we will be able to plan, right? So first step will be to understand the application, which can be done using explain command or explain option in WCA. Then we plan based on the analysis of the code. We understand the application. We plan, what needs to be upgraded. Then transformation can be done using WCA, right? We can transform the code with the optimized design. I mean, we can transform it into an optimized code base, right? And once it is transformed, we also need to validate it. Now, transforming is not just enough. We need to validate whatever is transformed is doing what it's supposed to do, or it's not breaking existing functionality. All right, so we can generate unit tests using WCA for the code that is transformed. Then code can be deployed, right? So lots of this deployment process can be automated using WCA. We can build this infrastructure as code using WCA, and it can be deployed. Then we can maintain the code, right? So there's a complete life cycle of modernization which can be done using WCA. Now this cannot be done alone by LLM, right? You have a model. You cannot just do all of this by just having a model. You need something more than that, which is Watsonx Code Assistant here. Now let's look at some of these core capabilities of WCA and how it solves different inefficiencies that are seen in software development lifecycle, right? So as I was telling, as human, there's a possibility we may make some mistake, right? It doesn't matter how good we are, right? On a bad day, we'll just end up making some mistake, which is inevitable, right? If you look at our career, throughout a career, there'll definitely be some instances we would have done this mistake. And now it comes with a cost, right? There'll be a productivity loss, there'll be a revenue loss when we do this mistake, right? So this is one kind of inefficiency that we would like to tackle using WCA. Then we'll have this skill shortage, like I told, application, we would have developed this application. We need more developers to manage that. We hire a developer, they will not come ready with this expertise, right? We need to hire them, we need to train them, right? And now that involves cost. Training involves cost, right? We have to invest time. So that is another problem. So, and when we do this modernization, there's this high risk associated with this modernization. So we may end up breaking the existing functionality, right? So there are lots of inefficiency that we can see in this SDLC, right? When we do things in a manual way, right? So we can use WCA to fix all this inefficiency, right? So we can boost developer productivity, right? So we can use WCA to generate this code. We can use WCA to explain the code. We can use it to automate, which will reduce lots of this manual tasks that we, as a developer, that we have to do, right? Even when it comes to training, we don't really have to train that developer, right? The new journey can use WCA to understand the existing code, right? Which would have taken more time for someone to explain. Now it can be done in a short period of time. Now the differentiate here is that WCA combines IP indemnification, like I told, right? So it will tell me the generated code, whether it's licensed or not. Now it's my call whether I want to use that code or not, right? Unlike other solution, Watsonx Code Assistant does that. Now, if you are modernizing a Java application, WCA is capable of identifying the changes that is needed for upgrading the Java code. Right? It will tell exactly what needs to be upgraded, and it will also tell me suggestion. This is what you have to do. That complete automation will be done by WCA. And as an enterprise, everyone will have their set of regulations that needs to be followed, right? So based on the region, based on the data that they are processing and managing, there will be different types of regulations and compliance checks that needs to be followed. So we have two different offerings. We have SaaS offering, we have on-prem offering. Based on the requirement, based on the data that's managed by the enterprise, one of this can be chosen. When I say SaaS, this solution is available in IBM Cloud. We can go to IBM Cloud and we can provision a cloud instance, or we can set it up on-prem. Now let's look at different features of Watsonx Code Assistant. So using WCA, developer can code faster, right? So this is just one simple example of quick sort here. where I know I type code and WCA will complete that statement. It understand what I'm doing. It'll just give me a quick suggestion saying that this is this what you want to do. Now, if I'm happy with the suggestion, I can go ahead and accept the code. I don't really have to type that entire line, or I can reject the suggestion. Right now, while Granite model is trained for multiple different languages, it performs really well for subset of these languages, right? So for Python, Java, JavaScript, TypeScript, C, C++, and Go, it has been doing really well, right? So this is being tested. It has been used by developers in different products. So it's, you know, the performance has been really amazing. Then this WCA, it can be directly integrated to our IDE, right? Our editor. So currently we support VS Code and Eclipse. So if you are using VS Code, you just go and search in marketplace for Watsonx Code Assistant. You'll get that plugin and you integrate to your IDE. Now there are this in while we have this in editor suggestions where it shows code suggestion while I'm typing the code. We also have this chat interface where you can talk to your code, right? So you can type in your questions in plain English language. Model will be able to understand it, and it'll get us what we want. So I just say create a quick short program in Python, and it'll get me the implementation. So this uses a IBM Granite model to understand this prompt that is given in plain English. It'll process it, it'll understand, and it'll take the context, and it'll get me what I want. Now, writing code is one part, but there's this other part. And most of the cases, developers, as you join an enterprise, it's not just you develop a new code, right? It's not just you build a software from scratch every day, right? So software would have been built by someone else, and we will have to add features to it, or we will have to maintain that software. That is more important. That's what is done mostly, right? So there's the existing software, we build on top of it, right? So for us, it is very important to understand that existing software, right? So WCA provides this explain option. WCA provides this documentation options, right? So we can just go ahead and use this option to generate doc and also to understand what this existing code base does, right? So there can be code, legacy code, right? Which is already built, which should have been built many years ago, and there's no documentation associated with it for me to understand how this works. So I just go ahead and click this document option, and I can generate this code. But it's a very big problem that is faced by many of the software developers today, right? Because personally, even I have worked with code bases which had absolutely no documentation, right? So when we didn't have this Gen AI solution, I had to manually go through this code. I had to understand how it works, and I had to uh, enhance it from there, or develop code from there, right? After understanding the code. Now that used to take a good amount of time for me, and there were cases where I was not able to understand the code. I had to reach out to people. Now getting time from people, that's also another challenge, right? Because people will be busy with their own tasks. We have to find time, right? Overall, it's a very time consuming process, and it is challenging process as well. So I would like to share this, success story, WCA success story with respect to client zero. Now, when I say client zero, we are referring our IBM developers, right? We consider them as client zero. Uh, we have this IBM Watsonx challenge, which is an annual event which happens every year. In the year 2024, in this IBM Watsonx challenge, uh, IBM allowed its employees to go and demonstrate how WCA can be used, right? How they can overcome some of these challenges that we talked about now about documentation using WCA. So the small team was formed, right? So what they did was they went and searched for. They got this list of 50 undocumented code repositories, right, which contains 150 JavaScript files each. So each repository containing JavaScript, 750 JavaScript files, and we had around 50 such repositories. Right now, none of them had any documentation. So the documentation that was written in a very poor way. Uh, right, it was not easy to be consumed by a new developer, right? So we wanted to solve this problem. So It was solved by this small group of people using WCA in these three stages, right? So first stage was to generate code. WCA generated a script to scan all these JavaScript files across this repositories, and to get the list of files which didn't have this documentation. So that was the first step. Second step was to understand that code, right? Code explanation, basically to get one sentence summary for each of this file. So before generating code, I need to understand what exactly this does. Is it really important to generate document for this file, right? So if it is not doing anything important, maybe we don't need document for that. So this explanation feature was used to get a summary of that file or a function to know what exactly is done, to understand its importance, right? Then the third step is to generate documentation. So another script was generated to generate this document. So this problem was solved using WCA, right? So if they were to generate this document manually, right, it would have taken months together for 50 repository, right? Because we understand this problem now, because we have to go through this code, each and every file, and manually see where the document is present, where it's not present. Then you manage this Excel, listing out all the different repository. Then again, go and generate document. Now if you want to generate document, you need people having this expertise to understand the code and generate this document, right? Now generating document not just requires technical skills, it also needs some this English skills, right? We have to generate document in such a way that it should be grammatically correct, and it should be easy for other developers to understand and consume that document, right? So we need someone with both the skills, both technical and this English skill, right? So it will not be easy to find such people, right? So it will be difficult. Now with all these challenges in place, it will take months together to generate documents. But this problem of solving or generating document for this 50 repository was solved in 1 week's time using WCA. Right? So reducing the manual effort, reducing the time, or saving so much, lots of time in generating the document. Now this WCA, it's not just limited to developers, right? It can be used by different uh, people with different role, different personas, right? Cutting across different roles, basically. So WCA can be used by architect, it can be used by developer, which we already spoke about, and it can be used by DevOps engineers as well, right? So everyone has their own role. There's a different set of tasks that they are expected to do, right? So if you talk about lead architect, he is responsible for coming up with the design. Basically, he will have to understand the requirement from business team, right? What needs to be done. Then he have to come up with the design. Then he needs to work with developers to get that implemented, right? The main pain point that is faced by architect is basically balancing the technical and business requirement. Basically, you understand the requirement, then you convert it into a software. Basically, he has to work with two parties here. It's not easy for him, right, to work with two different parties. So you can use WCA to boost his productivity. So what will do? He'll understand the requirement. He will pass on that requirement to enterprise developer. Developer will use WCA to generate this code, right? So developer will use WCA to generate code, and will to generate unit test cases. Now the code is ready. It is generated by WCA. There are no human errors here because code is completely done generated by WCA, right? So and this code is passed on to architect for review. Now as a reviewer, I know, okay, this code is generated by WCA. There's this trust. I know, WCA has generated the right code, and there's no scope for human error here, right? So I'm confident, right? Naturally, I'm confident. Okay, this code is ready, and if I'm not able to, this code is generated by WCA and it is ready to be used, right? And if as an architect, if I'm not able to understand the code, right? Then there's this explain feature. I just go ahead and use the explain feature of WCA. It'll explain me the entire the code for the workflow of the code, saying that this is what exactly it does, right? And if I see that there's something missing, I can go and ask developer to redo that part, right? They can regenerate the code. Now while architect and developer they work on generating this new software, We also have this DevOps engineer, right, who will have to deploy this code, be it in cloud, be it on-prem, right? They will have to build these pipelines. They will have to build this troubleshooting setup. They will have to build this monitoring setup. When software fails, we need to get an alert, right? So there is entire infrastructure they have to put up to get this code running. All right, so they can also use WCA to write or this automate this entire process, right? They can use this Red Hat Ansible Lightspeed solution to generate these playbooks for generating this uh, infrastructure, or this pipeline, which can be used to deploy the code. So in short, it can be used by different personas, right? Not just WCA is not just limited to developers, but it can be used by everyone who is involved in this process of building this new software or managing this software. So Watsonx Code Assistant, it's available in IBM Cloud, and we do have different plans associated with it, right? So there's this trial plan, free plan, which where developer can use it for 30 days. Then we have essential plan. Then there's standard plan. With essential plan, we can generate code, explain code, then create unit test case. We can document the existing code. But if you want to modernize the existing Java application, then we will have to switch to standard plan, where it comes with the additional capability of managing this Java specific application. So all of this are charged based on using a resource unit, something called as resource unit, which is a key metric here, which are comprised of tokens basically. So now every time I send out a prompt, it is broken down into tokens, right? And whenever I get a response, it is it is in the form of tokens, and it is put together, and I get the response. So everything is calculated as computed as tokens here. For example, for trial plan, we are allowed to use 150,000 tokens, which is about 15 resource units, right? So that's how we charge. That's how IBM charges, right? So based on the usage of these tokens, users get a bill is generated. Now, setting up Watsonx Code Assistant is very straightforward and easy. Uh, we can go to IBM Cloud, then we can search for Watsonx Code Assistant. We can provision a WCA instance there. Once the instance is provisioned using a cloud account. Say I'm an enterprise, I have a provisioned an instance using my cloud account. Now I want my developers to use that, right? So I create an access group. Basically, it's a group where I can control access for each of my developers. Then I create a deployment space. I create a space where I link all these different developers, right? Basically, this is where I manage my different developers who can use this WCA. I link this access group to this deployment space. Then I add developers. Basically, I add different developers who can access the WCA. So this access group that I create, it can be linked to different instances that can be provisioned from cloud, right? Not just limited to WCA. Say if I provision VM, I can use this access group, right? Same access group. It's basically a group of users that I create. Now, the deployment space, it is linked to WCA in specific, right? I create a deployment space for WCA. Then I add whichever access group I want to this deployment space, which will allow users or which will give permissions to users to use WCA. Then the last step is to install this extension. Uh, we can go to marketplace, right? If you are comfortable using VS Code, you can just go and check for marketplace there, search for this Watsonx Code Assistant extension there, and we can install it. Okay, now let's have spoken about various use cases of WCA, and we understand what WCA does. Let's look at the short demo that I have. How it can be used. So yeah, so I'm using VS Code here, and I already have my extension, the Watsonx Code Assistant extension installed. When I click on it, I get this interface on the left side where I can chat. On the right side, I have my VS Code editor. Now, what I want to do is that I want to generate a math library that has multiple mathematical functions, right? Then I want to expose it to different users. If they want to consume this library, they can very well use this library and they can consume it. That's what I want to do here. So I'm just typing in my simple prompt here saying that write a math operation class in Python that contains all these different functions, right? Add, subtract, multiplication, divide functions. uh, and I want to do something more than that, right? Not just create this function. So the function should be in such a way, implemented in such a way that it should take variable number of arguments, right? So usually when we tell add, naturally what we think is that add is for two numbers, right? But that's not what I want. I want this program to accept any number of arguments, right? So if I give five uh, integers as input, it should be able to add all these five integers. If I give 10 integers, it should be able to add all 10 integers. It should, the function should not be limited to only two arguments, right? So I want it to accept variable number of parameters. So that's what I want in my class. I write this prompt, then I just go ahead and press enter, right? I send in this prompt to WCA. Prompt is sent. We wait, and I get this entire program, uh, which contains that math class and does what I want, right? It not just gives me the program, it also gives me the explanation saying that what it has generated, and the code is present in markdown format at the below that explanation. There you can see a class, math operation class. Then there are these different functions: add, subtract, multiply. We have divide as well. And you can see that error handling as well, zero division error, right? Which is nice. I didn't ask for it, but then it proactively added that error handling to divide function. It also tells me how this class can be used by others, right? Now I have this code. Now if I want, if someone wants to trigger this function in this class, how they can do it. So it explains me all that. And now I have my editor open on the right side. What I do, I just go ahead and insert that code to my editor, right? Which is my VS Code editor. So I have this entire class with all these different functions, right? uh, Now as a developer, I want to do more, right? I don't want to limit my class only to these four functions, right? So I want to extend it and add few more functions. So I'll start defining. I'll start with factorial, right? So I'll add I want to write code for this factorial function. So as I type in, what happens is that WC understands that I am writing code for factorial function, and it completes that, right? It completes that signature of that function and gives me that suggestion. And okay, I'm okay with that suggestion, right? That's exactly what I'm trying to do. And I just hit tab and I accept that function. Then I go to next line. Okay, now I have the function signature, but I need the function definition, the entire code I need, right? So what I do, I go to next line and I trigger the WCA, right? And it gets me the entire code for that function. I don't really have to type anything, right? I didn't even type a single letter there. It just generated the entire code, and it even contains the document explaining what exactly it does. So within seconds, I have my factorial function ready, right? Without browsing any other third-party website, or without me thinking how this factorial works and typing in the code, right? Within seconds, I have my code ready. Now I want to do something more, right? Factorial is one function. This time I don't even want to write the function signature, because I don't know how this function signature works, right? So what I want to do is that I want to write a function for Fibonacci series. I type in this comment, right? Function to calculate Fibonacci series. Or let's just change, let's say, a function to print Fibonacci series, and I trigger WCA. On the left side bottom, you can see that Watsonx Code Assistant is triggered. There's a shortcut key, that can be used to trigger it. So I have configured it in my editor. I hit on it and it triggers the Watsonx Code Assistant, and it generates me the code, right? Within fraction of seconds, the code is generated. I go through the code and I see it uses iteration, right? So I don't want my code to use iteration, rather I wanted to use recursion. So what I do, I reject that suggestion. So let me tell specifically, you generate code using recursion. Then I hit trigger Watsonx Code Assistant, and there you go. We have the code ready. Uh, it gets me the code, Fibonacci series code, and it is done using recursion, right? So when the code is generated, we also have this option. So let's say the code is generated, right? Now uh, it's not easy for someone to understand this recursion code, right? It'll not be very straightforward as a new developer, or if I am new to programming, it's not easy for me to understand. So if someone wants to understand the code, how this recursion work, I can just go ahead and click explain here at the top, which can be seen right above this function signature. We have this three option: explain, document, and unit test. uh, we can use any of this. So I click on explain, and it should get me the explanation of this code. Yeah, there you go. So it gets me the explanation. It explain, what exactly this function does, right? So if I'm still not happy with the code, I can go again, change the comment, I can delete it, and I can rerun my retrigger the prompt, and I should be able to get the new code, right? So I have my class ready with 5 to 6 functions. Now if you see here, for the previous function I have doc strings, but here there's no documentation, right? There's no doc strings or comments related to the code. So I click on document. Let me create some doc for this function. Document is created. I'll just copy paste this document to my code, so it's easier for other developers to know what exactly it does, right? Okay, now we have a full-fledged math operation class which is ready to be consumed. Now, chat is one part. We can also, there are lots of ready commands that we have, ready-made commands, right, which can be used in the chat interface itself. I just type /help, and it tells me what are all those different commands that are available in chat interface that can be used. We can use it for explaining code. There's an option to generate code. Sorry, we have option to explain code. Then we have option to document code, generate unit test case, and also we have option to translate code from one language to another. So, sorry, where were we? Yeah. So what I do is that I use that explain option, and I select. I tell Fibonacci. It will give me the explanation, right? So now, yeah, I think we went through this. Document is done. Yeah, this is what we are looking at. So I was talking about the different options that we have, right? Or commands that can be readily used. So when I click on this /explain, there's this at operator that I can use. When I use this at operator, what it does is that it'll give me the list of all the different functions that are present in my class. Now this is a simple class, but in a enterprise level software, the file will be really big, and we won't even know what are all the different functions that we have, right? I don't really have to search that file to know what function it has. Rather, I just use this at operator. It gets me the list, and I select the function, right, what I want. So we can also select the entire file. So what I do is that I select this entire class, and I say, you explain me what this class does. So it gives me the explanation for the entire class, right? So consider this scenario. I'm a new developer. I'm looking at a new software code, right? There's like hundreds of lines of code in a single file, right? I don't really have to spend time understanding each of this line, right? I just go ahead and click explain, and there you go. I get the explanation, right? It takes only few minutes for me to understand each of this function that's part of that file or the entire file, right? So you look at that, you know, productivity improvement or the boost that we have got using WCA here in this particular example. So I get this explanation now. Okay, so I have my math operation class. Now, developing code is one aspect of it, right? We should also have this corresponding test case to ensure that the code does what exactly it's supposed to do. Also, when someone modifies this code, we have to ensure there's no regression, right? So for all that, we usually will have this separate test suite, right, which tests the functionality of the code. Now, what I do is that I want to generate this unit test for the code that I've written now. So I use this command slash unit test, and I select this entire file, and I click on enter or press enter. And there you go. We get the unit tests for all the functions that is present in that file, right? So I don't really have to sit and write the unit test cases for any of this, right? I have this unit test. Now it can be readily used, right? So I just go ahead and create a new file. I insert that code to the file. Now I have this math operation class with all these different functions. I have this corresponding unit test cases as well, right? Now this can be saved in my repository, and it can be consumed by anyone who wants to use this math library, right? So as you can see, right, so it just took me like few minutes to generate this entire math class and unit test, right? And also I could change things the way I want, right? So if you want to do more, we can do it, right? So that's how easy it is to use WCA and to speed up a developer's activity or development process, right? Now, math operation is one just simple example that I used to explain different use cases of WCA. I do have another example, which is a little more real world example, right? Which is a problem that can be faced by many of the developers in day to day development. In our day to day life, right? As a developer, so usually what happens is that whenever there's an application crash or whenever there's an issue, developer will be given a log file. So the log file will contain the dump of what exactly has happened, right? So the log file will usually be big in nature, and it will be very difficult to understand. It will be very cumbersome, right? There'll be multiple things in that, and it will not be easy for a developer to understand this log file. So I have a simple log file here, right? So there's, like you see, there's like multiple lines in that log file, and there's this one particular error hidden deep inside this log file, right? There's a value error. Now as a developer, I don't have to go through this entire log file, right? Sometimes it so happens the log file is so big, it takes, time to load it in text editor, right? If you do a vi or if you open it in text editor, it takes time, right? It will be that big. I don't want to do any of that, right? So I want, when I given a log file, I want to get that error, right? I want to know what is the error in that log file. So I write this code. uh, I tell WCA to write a Python program to read the log file, which is named as log.txt, from the current directory, and print only the error message that is present in the error. I don't care about rest of the details, right? To start my debugging, I just need that error string. I tell, get me that error string. And I also tell WCA, this is the format that you can expect the messages to be in log file, right? Because it will be easier for WCA to understand the format and generate the code for what we want. Then I send this prompt. So WCA will understand this prompt, and it should be able to get me the code to extract this error from the log files, right? Doesn't matter how big the log file is, that I just feed in this log file to this program that I'm going to generate, and this program should be able to get me that error, what is present in the code, right? So it gets me this code. It also explains me what it does. So there's a very simple program. It has generated it, it contains this regular expression, which will parse that input file, and it gets me what I want, right? So I don't even look at this code, right? I don't even go through this code. So the code is ready. I just go ahead and run it in the directory where that log file is there, and I see that error, right? So there's a big log file. I am able to extract this particular error string from that log. Now I know, okay, there's this error in this log, and it has occurred at this particular timestamp, right? So it has helped me to analyze the log file. Right now, this is just the starting of it, right? So now think about enhancing it. Now this might be coming in from a repository, from a particular line of code, right? So I want to understand, I want to see from where exactly this error is being thrown, right? I can enhance this script. I can add another prompt saying that you modify this script to go and search my repository and get me the line of code where this error can be hit, or potentially it can be hit, right? So we can enhance this script as much as we want using WCA, and we can automate this entire debugging process, right? So as a developer, if I had to sit through this log, understand, then again go to a repository, understand the code, is going to take me so much of time, right? So with WCA, all of this can be automated, and it's just going to increase my own productivity, right? My development uh, process, or the time that I spend in all of this is reduced. Now with that, it will give me more time for me to focus on the actual development activity that I have to do, right? So I don't really have to spend time in debugging this, right? Once I know the issue, then that's where I have to spend time to write this new code, right? So I get more time to do that by reducing all of these additional things that I have to do. Now, while I showed how script can be used to analyze the code, now I had to spend time to prepare this demo as well, right? So for you to know, I used WCA to prepare this demo, right? So I just this is how I did it. I wanted a log file to prepare this demo, right? I created this prompt, create a Python program to generate 100 log messages, and I gave some details there. Log should contain only one error message, like we saw in the log, right? There was just one error, and the error message should look real, right? It should be some error that we hit, right? So we saw that value error. Then rest of the log message should contain info and or warning, right? uh, and each line should contain timestamp. That's how the log file will be, right? So I gave all this prompt, then I generated that script. Now I generated the script for 100 lines. So if I want to give a demo showing 1,000 or 5,000 lines of log, I just have to modify that and I can do it, right? So I have the script. I don't really have to worry about generating this log in future, right? Now I look at this program and see, oh, there's lots of different types of error that is dumped here, which may you know make my log file look a little complicated, which I don't want to happen. I want to keep my log file as simple as possible. At the same time, it should look like a real log file, right? So what I'll do is that I want to remove this rest of these errors, right? I just want one error to be dumped in the log file. Let me retype my prompt to have only this value error. So I'll tell modify the program to contain only one error. Right now, when I say modify the program, when I tell modify the program, it gets the context, right? I don't really have to retype the entire prompt which I typed previously. If I tell modify, it understands, okay, that I have that WC has to modify the previous prompt. It gets the context, and It will modify that code, and it should be able to get me the new code with what I asked for now. Okay, so it gets me the new code, right? There's just one value error code. Sorry, the value error message, right? I just insert into my editor. I delete it again. I don't even look at what it does. I don't even have to go through the uh, go through each line to understand what it does, because I know WC has generated this code and it will do what I want, right? So I'll just go ahead and run it. Before running it, let me clean up my directory. So I just go ahead and run it. Let's see, it has run, and there's this log file. I think that got skipped the last part. So yeah, so it generates me that log file. So in short, WCA not just helps to generate coded. For me, it helped in coming up with this demo as well, right? So I just spent like few minutes uh, using WCA to generate this log file and to build this analyzer, right? Around 15 20 minutes, I was able to do it, right? So in short, WCA can be applied or used in different forms to solve different types of problem, right? We just have to uh, think, where it can be used, and we can use it. Okay. So let's see if there are any questions. Yeah, I think there's one question. Would it work for Terraform as well? Yeah, so we don't have Terraform support as of now. It's only supports WCA, sorry, Ansible. But yeah, in future, it may support Terraform as well. But for now, it supports only Ansible. Yeah, so there's a question that, do you say that WCA would not make any mistake? So, like I said, this WCA, now the model that we use, it is fine tuned for this seven languages, right? It is well tested. It is already used by our programmers, right? It's used by IBMers to develop IBM products, right? So it's enterprise level products. It is used by IBM developers, right? And it is well tested now. Uh, there's always this chance, right? There's this 1% chance that a model may hallucinate, because we are using a LLM model. There's always a possibility that LLM may make mistake, right? It may hallucinate and it make mistake. That's why we have this another solution, right? We generate code, then we generate unit test case, then we test that code, right? So we just don't have to code the right away. We create this test suite. We ensure the generated code works well and it does what it is supposed to do, right? So we cannot completely avoid that, possibility of LLM making mistake, right? That possibility is always there. uh, but that is very, very, very less, right? But we can always generate this unit test case to ensure whatever we are doing is, it is proper, and it is correct. Okay. So yeah, that's all I had from my side. Thank you then. Thanks everyone. Bye.